Hey guys, how's it going? It's Samuel here with Yes Sports, here today with a very special interview with Keith Adam Lipson, principal clarinetist of the Beijing Symphony Orchestra. How's it going, Keith?
It's going fine. I'm the former principal clarinet at the Beijing Symphony Orchestra. I'm now teaching at this music school, the Yehudi Menuhin School, which is in England. They now have a branch in China, actually. And so I'm a professor here. It's in Qingdao in China. And, it's mostly young kids, primary school through high school. And so I mean, it's kind of full time now, but I also perform chamber music and stuff. But yeah, so I'm going between Qingdao and Beijing at this
Oh,
point.
okay. So you what's it called? Like retired from the position?
I left. I quit my job there. I played a good how many years? Over 10 years there, and I had a great time, and it was a good experience. But I decided to move on to other things, put more of my sort of energy and attention into teaching. I want to do more chamber music and stuff. Also, I've interest in doing more. Well, I've started to do like a series of lectures about. Well, originally they wanted me to lecture about aesthetics, aesthetics education actually, for this university in Sichuan, Chengdu Institute of Technology, and so I've started to do lectures there. Initially, it was just about aesthetics. I decided to actually, my first lecture was understanding Western classical music through Chinese philosophy, basically. But the premise was that if you want to understand another culture, you have to kind of understand your own culture, and looking through the prism of Chinese philosophy to view the West. Because often at Westerners, they look at Chinese or try to understand Chinese philosophy through, which is what mostly people do through Western philosophy or through their own viewpoint, from the subjective to try to understand the objective. And so, yeah, it's sort of a pet like hobby of mine, Chinese philosophy and all this kind of thing. So I do that for fun. I really like, when I talk about Chinese philosophy, if for those of you who don't know, traditionally China had three different major philosophies. I mean, there are many different schools, but Confucianism, like Confucius, Taoism, which, is attributed to this guy named Lao Tzu, and the Tao Te Ching, and then like some Buddhist texts. But I mean, in China, Buddhism is not looked at as a religion so much as more of a philosophy or a way of life. So that type of thing. And yes, I play the clarinet. I teach. I perform. Yes, but I decided, the orchestra life was great, but it takes up a lot of time and can be limiting. And I wanted to get into other things, explore other avenues, and explore some of my interests. Okay, I'm
Okay,
talking so much.
no, it's
One
okay.
question.
It's like you said, you had a good run. Have they auditioned the spot already? Have they passed it on or?
Um, that's a very good question. To my knowledge, they haven't. So the situation with the Beijing Symphony, part of it was because of COVID, not so many concerts, and it's a government orchestra. I mean, actually, I would say 95% of orchestras in China are supported by the government, but they also have to do some concerts to earn money for themselves. The government, Beijing is not giving the orchestra so much money anymore, and they cut salaries, and that's one reason I left. And they're putting more attention into other orchestras, which is understandable. So another expat colleague of mine, a tuba player from the United States, he also left the orchestra, and some other people have left. It's unfortunate. The orchestra had a very good run, but the government is not putting as much attention to that orchestra anymore. Other orchestras are getting more attention, so it worked out fine because I wanted to get out into other things anyway, and if the orchestra is changing its nature, then that's fine with me. I'll just
Give you
move
that
on to
extra
other things.
push. Um,
Yes.
so explain your journey. Like, you're an LA native. You came to China 18 years ago,
Hmm.
was it?
Uh, Over 19 years ago.
Okay,
We're,
I was
we're
close.
approaching. We're very close. We're approaching 20 years. Okay,
Okay.
it's
So,
crazy.
so,
I came out here in 2003, February of 2003.
so explain your journey. Like, what made you go to China in the first place, and what made you stay there?
I guess nothing made me. I just wanted to come. A lot of people ask me this question: why did you come to China? There is no short answer, or I could say the short answer is I wanted to come, and so I came. Now, why did I want to come? A variety of reasons. One of them was my interest in Chinese language and culture, especially philosophy, which we just mentioned. I thought it would be interesting to learn Chinese. It's a challenge. A lot of people say it's a very difficult language. In some ways, it is. I just wanted to learn the language, and the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself and be surrounded by it in an environment. And yeah, so I just decided to move out here. Yeah, a lot of people didn't understand that at the time. I mean, this was almost 20 years ago, and China was already starting to develop, but it not nearly as developed as it is now. And I don't know. Part of me, I knew that China would develop pretty quickly. I didn't expect it to be so quickly. I mean, I didn't come out here necessarily to make it big or become famous or something.
Too
I just
bad.
was interested in coming here. So I mean, I went to a good music school and I had a decent life in the United States. But I wanted to try something else. Um, I went to Curtis Institute of Music, and I saw a lot of my colleagues or classmates. You graduate as a wind player, you probably get into an orchestra, and then you buy a house in the suburbs, and then you die. just, I just, I just like, okay, yes, I love playing I played in an orchestra in China, but I just playing an orchestra to play an orchestra, just as something you do. It didn't seem that interesting to me. Maybe I wanted more out of life than just, you know, playing in an orchestra. I wanted to experience life more because, growing up as a musician, you're sort of confined in this really small, rarefied world, and most of your friends are musicians, and you don't really understand like what is going on in the rest of the world or society or anything. So I think that was part of it too. I just felt like my horizon was so limited, and I wanted to, experience a different culture. And I mean, China's great. It's the most populated country in the world, and people are in general pretty friendly here. So I've made all kinds of friends from different, I guess, different parts of society from all over China. I like to talk, so I mean that's one way I've learned Chinese. It's just I talk to everybody, even today, even these days. Every person I meet, I say a few words to. If I'm taking a car, I'm talking to a security guard, or I'm talking to someone in the kitchen at the school, like the cafeteria. I use every opportunity to meet people, make friends, and practice the language. And you can understand not only the language but the culture from different people. And that's interesting for me. And I've met all kinds of people in China, and everyone has a different perspective. But I mean, of course, it's like that everywhere, in the United States as well, or in Canada. But for me, China was just such a different world that I wanted to explore it. It felt like such a foreign, strange culture at the time. And a lot of people in the West don't understand it very well. Um, and if you haven't lived here and experienced it yourself, then yes, it's difficult to understand. Most people know about China or other countries from what they see on the evening news or what they read in the newspaper, and it's often different than reality. So it's interesting to experience things for yourself. So I came here, wanted to learn Chinese, learn about the culture, try something else. I did not come here to do music. I came here not to do music. And yeah, a lot of people didn't understand, like, what are you doing? You graduated from Curtis, you play really well, and you didn't have a career. I didn't care at the time. I just didn't want to do that at the time. I wanted to take a break from music. In fact, I brought my clarinets to China, but I didn't really plan on playing that much. In fact, after a year or so living in China, one of my friends was playing in the Silk Road Ensemble with Yo-Yo Ma, and he said, "In 2 weeks, we're going to perform in Carnegie Hall and then go to Tanglewood for a workshop. Would you like to join us?" I'm like, I haven't practiced in a year. I haven't touched my clarinet in a year, and I'm living in China right now. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could have like practiced a lot in 2 weeks and then taken a flight out. I just didn't really want to. Um, and some people say, "Oh, that's a great opportunity." Honestly, maybe, but that wasn't what I was focused on at the time. So, yeah, I've taken a very untraditional path.
I've got a solution for you. Next time that happens to you, you say, "Hey, I know this great kid. He's called Sam. You should
Yes.
totally hit him up."
Yes, I will do that. I will do that. If someone, if the Silk Road Ensemble is looking for another clarinet player, I will definitely
Okay,
hook
okay.
you up. I'll definitely hook you up.
That's funny.
But yeah.
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, no, no. I mean, and some people might say, "Oh, you're just, you know, you're sort of being, what's the word? Like hoity-toity, kind of chingal." I think in Chinese, kind of looking with disdain on people who care about career and money. It's not that. I just honestly I just didn't care that much. But I like doing things that make me happy and make people around me happy. And I eventually got back into music again. I met a friend. Well, I met somebody who was on a Fulbright scholarship named Eli Marshall, a composer who had gone to my school, gone to Curtis after me. He was here on a Fulbright, living in Beijing, and he tried to get me back into music. He wanted to start a contemporary ensemble, and at first I was like, "No, I'm just not interested." Find somebody, and then he was persistent, and we started to play a bit together, and then I started to do music again, but as a hobby. Like I was doing other things for money, like translation, and doing business for a while, and doing all kinds of different things. But I was doing it as a hobby, and so at the time we had the only contemporary music ensemble in all of China. At the time, it was I guess 2006, 2005. It started around then, 2005, and through 2012 or so, we were pretty active. But and we would do concerts, fairly regularly. But and there was some money in it, but not much. It was just more for fun as a hobby. And then I started to play again more, and I would go out to New York sometimes. Some friends out there played some contemporary music. I also played some chamber orchestra stuff, some chamber music. So I started to do more of that professionally. I even went on some tours with this one chamber orchestra, the Knights, based in New York. We toured around Europe and stuff. And so I was playing, I guess professionally. There were professional musicians. And I was getting paid, but it was still, for me, it was kind of like a hobby. I think music, yes, I mean you can make money from it and you can consider it a profession, but I think it's a hobby. It's a passion or whatever. But the moment we think about it in very professional terms, like I have to do my job and I have to, think about just you know, making ends meet by music and just thinking about that, then sometimes we lose sight of why it's important or why we got into it in the first place. It's very difficult to find this balance, of course, especially now for a lot of young musicians. It's so competitive now. There are not many good positions and there are a lot of people graduating from music conservatories, and it's not easy to find your place. But so I always try to keep the spirit of an amateur, but try to play in a so-called professional level. I mean, I play well, or I try to play the best I can. I try to bring out the spirit of the composer's music and all of that. But I try to have the mind of an amateur or enthusiast, in a sense, or having like a childlike wonder at the music whenever we play. And try to put everything into it. I mean, because music only exists in the present moment. That's what's so special about it. It's not like you put some piece of artwork in a museum and it collects dust, and it's a fixed moment in time. Music is only existing in the moment. You have a score, and it's a representation of the music, but it's not the music. And so this is what's very interesting about music, for me, that it's only in the present moment, and then it passes away forever. So it's kind of interesting. I guess you could say it's somewhat philosophical in a sense. Yes.
So so you started playing in this contemporary ensemble. How did you go from point A to point B, where you know next thing everybody knows you're principal clarinetist of the Beijing Symphony?
How did I go from point A to point B? Well, there are many points in between,
Okay.
um, and I don't even know if point A is point A. But yes, so as I was saying, I got more and more into music. Not professionally per se. I was playing at a professional level, of course, and having fun with it. But I was doing other things for money. I well, it kind of coincided with me getting married. You see, getting married, you kind of want a more stable life. I mean, I had a stable life in the sense I was able to support myself and all of that, but I guess having a stable job. In China, we say dan wei, which means work unit, like having a work unit, having a stable gig. And so I think that was part of it. And then, you know, I before I was in the Beijing Symphony, I was playing in this like symphonic wind orchestra. A friend of mine from Switzerland had started, and and he really wanted me to be the concert master, the principal clarinetist, the concert master. So I did that, and then this one conductor named Tanley Hua, who was conductor of the Beijing Symphony, he heard me play this Rossini introduction theme and variations with the wind orchestra, and I guess he liked it and he was impressed or something, and then he made it known that I could maybe get a job there or something, and eventually I decided to go there. I mean, I just got married, and I thought being in the Beijing Symphony would be a more stable existence, and I figured, well, it's kind of interesting in a way that I avoided playing in a professional orchestra for so many years, but I'll try it in China, and sort of combine my love for music with my love for China and see what that's like. And so then so yeah, I auditioned. I mean, the conductor already wanted me in the orchestra, and so then I, you know, told him that I was interested in going, and then I actually had an audition, and then he accepted me into the orchestra, and that was in 2000 and what was it, 2011? I started in 2011 in September, I believe,
It's
with the orchestra, if I
one
remember
month.
correctly.
I think that's one
Or
month after
2000.
my first clarinet lessons, I think.
Oh wow, am I old?
Maybe just a little.
What?
I'm just teasing.
It's fine. I feel so old now.
No, I started
Yes,
late. I
time.
started late.
Yes,
I started like
that's
17
okay.
or something. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty. I mean, that's relatively. But I mean, my teacher Yehuda Galad started when he was 16, so it's never too late.
Oh, okay. I did not know that
It's never
one.
too. Yeah, no, he did. He did. And I think in some ways it's beneficial to start later. I mean, you go through more of an analytical process when you learn. And I think it really helped him to become a great teacher because he has to. Learning the clarinet at that age, he had to go through this analytical process to figure out exactly the mechanism of playing and all of this. And so I think it really benefited as a teacher. Oftentimes, when people start very early, as myself, a lot of things we sort of take for granted. We just do it naturally, and then when we come across a student who doesn't know how to do something, we're like, "What? How do you not know how to do that? It's so obvious. Just play and do it." So, but for myself, the fact that I quit for several years and came back to it again was very helpful for my teaching because then I had to go through this analytical process. Some things that were very easy for me before I had to relearn and be very conscious of how I was doing them. So, actually, not playing really helped my playing in some ways. I think it helped me to be a more thoughtful musician and also to be a better teacher. So, a lot of people think, oh, you leave music for a few years, you'll become behind, and you'll just, you'll lose everything. And people are so afraid of giving something up, but sometimes when you let things go and give them up, you actually gain other things. As they say, when one door closes, another one opens. And I definitely find that to be the case. With the Beijing Symphony, I love the Beijing Symphony, but then I got this job here at the Menuhin School in Qingdao as a professor, and now I'm getting other job offers, which I'm not at liberty to disclose right now. But but other teaching offers in different places. But for me, at this point, yes, I'm a clarinet teacher, performer, but I'm actually more interested at this point in getting more into studying Chinese culture and also teaching about it, and talking about sort of comparative culture, comparative philosophy, and this kind of thing is very interesting for me, and it's in a way more interesting than, well, I mean, music is of course a passion of mine, but this is more interesting for me, especially in this time that we're in now, where there's a lot of misunderstanding between different cultures and different people, different countries. Part of that is just a lack of real cultural understanding, and people looking at other cultures just completely foreign with nothing in common with them, and and sort of viewing people as the other. And the more I get into sort of Chinese philosophy, the more similarities or commonalities I see with some basic aspects of Western culture. It's very interesting, actually. It's just, of course, the language is different, and language shapes how people view the world. And so when we understand another language at a deeper level, then it also changes how we perceive the world, or we can look at the world in different ways. So that's kind of a more interesting hobby of mine right now. But yes, I'm still, as you can see, I have all these clarinets. I don't know if you can see them. There's my German clarinets, my French clarinets. I have a Basset clarinet over there. I don't know if you can see that. I'm still practicing, and I have a concert. We have a concert at the school on Thursday. It's a Chinese National Day, so it's a concert for that. But we're doing mostly Western classical music, a few Chinese pieces, and I helped to organize the concert. And I'm playing the Mozart Quintet, just the first movement, and then it's a Cacciaturian Trio, which you might remember.
Yes, I do.
Doing yes,
I'm surprised you
during the
remember
third.
that.
Yes, I remember you guys. I helped you coach that. Helped coach that for you. You did the first movement. I remember playing for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You played the first movement, and then yeah. So we're just doing the third movement of that because the third movement of the Cacciaturian Trio has a melody that Cacciaturian heard, I think, in Kazakhstan or somewhere. That is also a popular melody in China because there's this group called the Uyghurs or in the Western China, and they shared a lot of music with Cossacks in Central Asia. And so it became a popular pop song, kind of like a folk pop song in China, this Uyghur melody. And Cacciatore uses basically the same melody. It's a little bit different. Bum 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 be da be da dee bum bum bum. So it's very interesting. So I remember this is one of the first chamber pieces I played as a child, the Cacciatore Trio, the third movement.
What?
And yes, years ago. I mean, I don't know, I was probably like 10 years old or
I
something.
wouldn't
I
be
don't
able
know.
to play that at 10.
Well, just the third movement. The third movement's easier. But so I think I played it, yeah, really young. And so knew that melody very well. Or maybe it wasn't 10, maybe it was 13. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. Pretty early. So I knew that melody very well. And I remember coming to China years later, and I heard this on a loudspeaker in some restaurant, this melody. And I'm like, wait, I know this melody. What's going on? And then I investigated and I was like, oh, it's really the same melody. It's just so it's interesting that there's this kind of cultural exchange that happens musically in other ways as well. It's very interesting. I mean, there's been so much more cultural exchange over the centuries and millennium than most people realize.
I think it's really funny. You sort of live this life where it's like, you went to the top music school, then you're like, ah, it's okay. I don't want anything to do with it. Now look at you. It just can't get away from you. The Beijing Symphony was asking you to audition. Now you're like, ah, I got all these job offers. Like, I can't even turn them all down. And then there's the other side of the
Yeah.
coin where people who like, they practice and they grind, and it's like such a struggle.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've had difficult times too. We all have. I mean, that's life. Am I allowed to say bad words on this
Um,
podcast?
Maybe we'll avoid it just to be safe. I've avoided it too.
Okay. It's not a bad. Okay, I mean, I was going to say a saying that my father used to say. That's life in the big city, but he would pronounce city a little bit differently.
Okay.
Yes, you could probably get that. So, I mean, yeah, I've also been through some difficult times. Everyone has difficulties that they have to deal with, and yeah, I mean, I don't want to seem so nonchalant about things, but I guess in my case, the fact that I was willing to give this up or that up in a way has opened up new doors. But I did practice a lot when I was young, and I still practice. And I started when I was pretty young, the clarinet. I started when I was 8. And my mother was actually pretty supportive of that. And yeah, so I mean, I was lucky in that sense. But, you know, um, I guess my advice to all of those who are in the grind, as you say, and practicing away and trying to find good jobs, well, keep practicing. But also, music is more than just practice. It's also, well, it's you really get into it. It's just I guess, well, being a musician is also a way of life, and playing music is more than just playing the notes, more than just trying to play perfectly. So sometimes people are, of course, we want to try to play as best we can and not make mistakes. But when we're too focused on just not making mistakes and trying to play correctly all the time, we often lose the point of what we're doing. And so, or we're too focused, we lose the forest for the trees. We're too focused on some of the minutiae of the details that we're practicing, technical details, that we lose sight of phrasing or the structure of the piece or this type of thing. So I think it's very important for musicians to have a more well-rounded sort of musical education, and also a general humanities education as well. I think there's also a connection between literature and music, even visual art to a certain degree. There's a connection. And of course, I mean, music is also can be mathematically represented And so I think that, you know, it only benefits one to have a good sense of different arts and humanities and sciences to a certain degree, of course. We still have to practice and all of that. But I guess not to limit oneself too much. And I know a lot of really talented, smart people who are practicing, slaving away, and they're limiting themselves sometimes. I think it's also good to go out and explore and to try other hobbies and also learn other things. I encourage people to get double majors. If they're academically inclined to get a music degree and another degree. I have friends that have done that. I've had one of my really good friends, Josh Rubin, a clarinet player, who's plays a lot of contemporary music. Now he gets into period clarinet playing. I grew up with him in Malibu, Santa Monica, that area. He majored in biology and clarinet. Went to Oberlin, and I've had other friends that also had double majors and still became musicians. Like a friend of mine, Ariana Gez, this oboe player, who was principal of the Los Angeles Philharmonic. I remember she went to Juilliard and Columbia at the same time and got a double degree there. I know it's pretty crazy, but this can be done. I mean, often people we tend to limit ourselves. We think, oh, I can only do this or that, or we I think lack a sense of true confidence and practicing. Yes, it's practicing with quality, with concentration, and practicing with confidence. Sometimes, and I've been there. I've practiced, hours and hours, and I'm in a bad mood, or I'm just ramming my head in a wall. I've reached like a bottleneck or something, and it's not helpful. In those cases, it's better just to not practice, go out for a walk, have some fun, and then come back with a fresh mind. And, take your time with practicing. Never rush through it. And you could get better results. But yeah, I think, we have to, it's always good to have different hobbies. Really never limit yourself to one thing. And, I mean, music as a profession, I still don't consider it a profession. I've made a profession out of it, but what I mean. It's in a sense people take it too seriously, in the wrong ways, but not seriously enough in the right ways. You know, in terms of really trying to express the spirit of the composer, what the composer was trying to say through the music, understand the mind of the composer. You know, it's I mean, part of it's understanding the score, the harmonies, structure, but also how it manifests in the part you're playing, having an idea of some idea at least of the performance practice of the time. I think that's also very useful and you can say essential. Though sometimes when people focus too much on performance practice at the time, they also lose the spirit because then they become too pedantic, and that often happens. So, because we live now in the present, we live in 2022. We don't live in, 1795 or whatever. So we have to still live in the present. But by living in the present, we can sort of, well, bring life or bring to life the music of Mozart because it only exists now when we play. Or not now because there's no music, but if I was to play, there would be music and it would be alive.
So,
So,
um, I want to ask, so are you familiar with two-set violin?
yes, I am. I'm a fan. I'm actually a very big fan of them.
Okay,
I
okay.
Yes, I give them a shout out. I think they're a lot of fun. I've watched actually quite a few of their videos back in the day. I haven't watched them in a while, but I at one point I was watching a lot of their videos,
Right,
and
right. So they got this one video. It's called, I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's called like "We Tried Auditioning to the Best Music School in the World," right? and it's a video of
Curtis, yes.
yeah, it's a
Yes, I
video.
saw that video. I saw that video. It's a
Yeah.
great video. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, and this is like a sort of like a double jointed question, but what was
Yeah.
it like studying at Curtis, and also what was it like studying with Yehuda? And I'll just give a
Hmm.
bit more context to my question for listeners. So for those of you who don't know, Yehuda Gilad is one of he's basically like the teacher for clarinet that people try to go to, because he produces such a large amount, like basically, his students all end up winning high powered jobs with orchestras or as soloists and winning international, the whole thing. And the Curtis Institute is, if you don't know about it, it's one of the very top music schools. So yeah, like I've heard this philosophy where it's like you don't audition to a school for the teacher, you audition for the program, and then there's also the school of thought where it's you audition for the teacher, and I've been convinced that most people who audition for Curtis don't audition to study with that specific teacher. They audition to Curtis because it's Curtis. And it's the program and all that. So
Hmm.
I want to hear
Yes.
your opinions on that, and also, well, your thoughts on that, and also just what was
Yes.
it like? What was in your mind special about studying with Yehuda and Curtis, etc.?
Yes. Okay. May I ask who is my audience?
Just a
Anybody?
just just a oh gosh, now you put me in a tight spot.
Oh,
Just
hi, audience. Nice to meet you. Yes.
just
Um,
just like anybody on the street, I guess.
anybody.
Yeah, yeah,
Anybody on the street. Anybody who watches or who goes online on the internet.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
Hello, anybody. Yes. So, yeah, what was it like to study at Curtis? Well, it was a great experience. Um, I mean, every great experience has good and bad. Okay. Nothing is, you know, there is no, as I say, heaven on earth. There is no perfect situation. But Curtis, what was great about Curtis was that there are so many talented students there. I had so many talented classmates that I could learn from. I went to school with Hilary Hahn. I went to school with Long Long. For those of you who don't know, Hilary Hahn's a very famous violin soloist. Long Long is also a very famous piano soloist. I went to school with some of these people, and then I went to school with other people a lot of people don't know about that aren't as famous now, but actually are fantastic musicians. And I learned so much from them. And I played chamber music quite a bit at Curtis, and I got to work with some fantastic, thoughtful musicians. And so that was a great experience, just being around so many talented people, especially string and piano players. The winds, yes, as well. There's some good players, but especially with string and piano, it was fantastic to be around that. And we had a great conductor at the time, Otto Werner Müller, who was this old German guy. He was probably like, I don't know, 6'10" or something, huge, looming presence. He was a giant of a man. And this old conservative German guy who spoke with a very strong accent. And he could be pretty strict sometimes, but he also had a sense of humor. But we all learned so much from him about what an orchestra was about and about to listen to other people and learn about the score. He was great with, traditional like Germanic repertoire, which in some ways is the sort of the backbone of the symphony orchestra repertoire. Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, this type of music, and of course we did a lot of Bruckner, which he was also very good with. So he was an Austrian composer, but so that was a good experience to have a sort of traditional backbone, like or background, and like really traditional repertoire from someone that was not only a great musician but a great educator. And we got to work with musicians from the Philadelphia Orchestra. Richard Woodhams, the principal oboe, fantastic musician. He's still around. He's retired now from the Philadelphia Orchestra in Curtis. We had a wind class with him every week, and we learned very much from him. And my teacher, Donald Montanaro, may he rest in peace. He passed away a few years ago. Very, very nice man. And I learned a lot about him, a lot from him about sound, about the beauty of the sound, and about phrasing. and refinement in playing. And he was, he had gone to Curtis himself, so it's, I guess, this old Philadelphia school of clarinet playing, which I was exposed to, which I hadn't been exposed to before so much. But of course, I had been exposed to it in Los Angeles because Mitchell Lurie had gone to Curtis and was also part of that school. Mitchell Lurie was Yehuda's teacher, and Mitchell Lurie was also one of my teachers and my first quintet coach when I was in high school. So, yeah, it was a great experience in that regard. It's a very small school, 100, at the time 165 students, and everybody knew each other, of course, and just the campus was small. It wasn't a campus; it was like a few buildings in Philadelphia, and we didn't have dormitories. We had to rent our own apartment. It was an interesting experience, to say the least. Academic classes people didn't take so seriously back then. And a lot of people, they take off time for competitions or concerts and stuff. And I think that's, in a way, a shame that it wasn't more focused on academic classes. Though Curtis had and has a relationship with the University of Pennsylvania, where we could take classes for free at the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school. So I took advantage of that in my last year there. I took some philosophy classes, philosophy of religion, philosophy of space and time, and a Shakespeare class I took there. Just, because I wanted to sort of get out of Curtis and see how other people in the real world were living. Curtis, 165 people, and then go to Penn, which is thousands of people on this huge campus, was a different experience. So I guess a school like Curtis, it's just very small, insular, and it's in this sort of cloistered, rarefied classical music world. So that, in some ways, is good. In some ways, not, because you think the whole world revolves around you and what you're doing when it really doesn't so much. And I think classical musicians often just think what they do is so important. It has its importance, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. So you know what I mean? Especially at a school like Curtis, where you have a lot of really talented people, or whatever you call them, musical geniuses, running around or whatever, and people think that there are a lot more. And of course, they're sort of treated this way. I think people lose focus or lose sort of perspective this way, and a lot of people, can get burnt out if the star burns too brightly, it won't burn so long. And I think in some ways I got burnt out of just the whole thing. And I just wanted to sort of expand my horizons and sort of just live like a normal person, you know. Um, that's one reason I, you know, eventually, moved out to China. So about Yehuda Galat, I started studying with him in high school when I was about to turn 16. Basically, when I was 16, I started studying with him. And I studied with him in high school for a year, actually less than a year. But in that time, it completely changed my clarinet playing, and you can say changed the direction of my life. Great teacher. He's great at diagnosing problems, like a doctor. A good doctor just looks at a patient, checks him out for a few minutes, and can find out what's wrong. Yehuda is like a clarinet doctor in a sense. A student will just play for a few minutes, a few phrases, and he will isolate all of the problems a student has with it. Technical problems, breath support, or with embouchure. Embouchures are lips and how they're formed, or fingers, and all these technical things he can pick out right away, and he has all these great solutions to the problems. And he's also a great musician with a lot of ideas. And he was very inspiring. He is a very inspiring teacher. And I learned so much from him in that short time. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten to Curtis, I think. There are certain things that he talked about, especially with breath support, with use of air, which, I I you know, I might have eventually come to it on my own, but maybe not in that way. So after I graduated from Curtis, I actually went back to USC, University of Southern California, where he was teaching, and I studied with him for less than a semester. And then he was like, "Well, why don't you kind of know my shtick already, you know what I'm about." And then he had me study with Michel Zukovsky of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, who recently retired, fantastic person and player. I also studied with Mitchell Lurie, who was his teacher, who I have been coached before by on the Woodwind Quintet, so I knew Mitchell Lurie already, but it was great to study with him in person. And yeah, and then yeah, so but I definitely studying with Yehuda changed my life for sure, and studying with Montanaro at Curtis also changed my life. I mean, I guess every experience is a life changing experience in one way or another, just a question of degree. But yeah, I'm grateful for all my experiences, though, no experience is perfect. You make the best of the experience.
I don't know if it's possible, but just just to finish up, can you give an example of one time you've gone through hardship and how it benefited you, if I can use that word?
Yes, gone through hardship and it benefited me. Well, from one way of thinking, I think every hardship can be beneficial. And people might say, "What? I don't want to go through a hardship. That sucks. How would that be beneficial?" Well, if you survive the hardship, there's a saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." It's true. I haven't died yet. I'm still alive. But no, I mean, all of our hardships that we go through, it does make us stronger. And we get to know ourselves better and our strengths and our weaknesses. You want a specific hardship?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
sure, I could share anything, I suppose. Yes. Think of a specific hardship that I've been through. Well, I guess studying at Curtis in some ways was a hardship, just because I was very young. I just turned 17, and I was my first time away from home. I didn't know how to. I'd never washed clothes before. I'd never cooked for myself. I didn't know what I was doing. My father, rented an apartment for me in Philadelphia, and then he left, and he's like, "Okay, see you later." I'm like, "Okay." And I just remember lying in my bed in my apartment in Philadelphia, and like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I'm all on my own and don't know what to do, and that was difficult. Just being my own for the first time, and then just being at a school, like, I had some friends there, but it's Curtis was also, I mean, I wouldn't say competitive in the normal sense, but you felt like everyone was always watching you.
Cutthroat a
Like,
bit.
not cutthroat, but like, every time you played, people were, they were really listening really closely
Oh,
and
okay.
all the little details. And because they pretty high standards, and some people had certain ideas about how music should be, and other people had different ideas. And it was interesting because some people had very interesting ideas of how music should or shouldn't be. And some of them, I think, were not based on anything real. Like, I'll give one example. I won't mention any names,
Sure, 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 sure.
just to protect the innocents who are still friends of mine. So I was with a good friend of mine from Canada, actually, Reza Jacobs. I don't think he's a pianist anymore, but he was a fantastic pianist, Reza Jacobs from Canada. We were really good friends, and we were playing Brahms Sonata number two, and both of us memorized it, and we were playing a sonata from memory, rehearsing it. We were planning on performing it, and then a friend of mine, a classmate, I won't mention the instrument or the name, and he said, "You shouldn't memorize it. Why are you memorizing a sonata? No, it's chamber music. Chamber music should never be memorized." I asked, why not? Is there some rule somewhere written? Or what is this? He's like, no, because chamber music, you have so many details and you have all these dynamics and things, and you know, it's intricate, the score. And I'm like, yes, but we memorized that. You know, because we rehearsed a lot. We both knew the score very well. We knew, you know, and we really had a good, I thought, pretty good concept of what we wanted in the score. And and he was just up in arms about it. You know, oh, how dare you? You know, it just was very strange his reaction. I was like, well, why does it matter to you? You know, it's not your performance. It's not like I'm playing chamber music with you and I'm forcing you to memorize it. It's like nothing to do with you. And then another, I could mention his name, and then another classmate, a little bit older than me, named Damari McGill, a fantastic flute player, who was the older brother of Anthony McGill. And I remember Damari McGill came to listen to me and Reza Jacobs rehearsing the Brahms. And he was really supportive. He was like, that sounds great. I really like your guys are memorizing it. It frees you up so much. And so from my other classmate, I sort of felt kind of, you know, especially when you're young, I was like 18 at the time. It really sort of affected me. But then, you know, Damari, I felt really encouraged by what he was saying. So, I mean, it was difficult dealing with some of my classmates who had certain concepts of how music should or shouldn't be. I mean, it's good to have opinions, I think, but it can be difficult, especially when you're young, when people are so critical, and not necessarily critical of the right things for the right reason. So that was difficult, and but it helped me, I guess, become stronger, and in the end, not care too much what people thought about me. You know, when we think when people either criticize or compliment us, we often get caught up in that. When we get compliments, we feel so great. We often, and sometimes we can even, you know, feel a little bit arrogant or whatever if we get too many compliments, and that's not good. And then if people criticize us too much, and we take it personally, then it can be, you know, we could be sort of self-deprecating. So, you know, I was kind of like that at Curtis, like going between, because some people would give me really good compliments and I felt great, and then other people would not be so complimentary and maybe say things that weren't so nice. And so I was like, am I good or am I bad? Am I a great clarinet player or do I just lost track of who I was and what I was doing because I was caring too much about how they perceived me as a player, a musician, or a person. So that was very difficult because I lost track of who I was and what I was doing. And I just only cared about what people thought about me. So after a while, I just did not care anymore. Like, I don't care. Think what you want. You like it, you don't like it. You know, when I play on stage, I play, and if you don't like it, great. If you like it, great. Doesn't matter. And it's liberating. And you know, sometimes I I usually have pretty good performances, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll mess up here or I'll have this or that problem, and that's fine. It happens. And I guess my advice to any musicians or aspiring musicians out there is that, you know, stuff happens and get over it because music is only live in the moment, and maybe people already forgot about the mistake you made, or maybe they didn't hear it that much. Or when you're on stage, you make a small mistake, don't think about it too much. In fact, don't think about it. Just keep going. Because if you think about that one little mistake you just made, then you might make a bigger mistake later because you lose concentration, you know. So I think it's also like that in life, in a sense. You know, as we go through life, not to beat yourself up about mistakes you've made in the past, to learn from them and try not to make them again. But if stuff happens, it happens. We all make mistakes. So I guess this is a kind of hardship I went through, and then I guess it, you know, I hopefully got some wisdom out of that, or learned to be you know, a better person or something. But yeah, I mean, like anybody, I've had my share of hardships, and I've had some very difficult times, and I've also had some great times. But I guess my advice to anybody who's going through any hardships is that it'll pass away. Nothing is permanent. Hardships pass away, good times pass away. But one thing that doesn't pass away is true friendship and also family. And you know, it's very important, I think, to have, you know, friends and family you can trust. That's, I think most important thing. No matter how successful one is, or famous, or how unsuccessful one is and not famous, it doesn't matter. All it matters is if you have a good family, friends. This is the most important thing. I've known people that were very wealthy, but maybe didn't have a good family life, or didn't have, you know, that kind of happiness. And I've known people that were not wealthy, but who had a really good family life, a lot of good friends. So I think that's more important than anything else. And I guess that's my advice to anybody out there, that yes, we want to be successful, and of course have a better job, or this or that, a career, of course. But at the end of the day, what matters most is our, I guess, personal happiness and what we can share with other people. So I guess this talk has become kind of like a philosophical
Yeah, a
self-help
bit,
talk.
but it's okay. No, it's good. It's
That
good.
wasn't my intention
Nah, don't
necessarily.
worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Keith, for the interview. It was really nice to catch up with you and chat about these things.
Of course, it's always great to speak with you, Samuel. And I'm so happy you're doing really well.
Thanks.
Samuel, if you don't know, he's doing very, very well. He has a good job in the Canadian military, which is the Army band,
Navy band. Yes.
Navy band. Sorry, okay, Navy band, which is great. And he also does a lot of chamber music and solo stuff, and he does stand up comedy, which I recently discovered, and it's actually pretty darn funny. So yeah, he's a great person, and yes, he used to study with me. So he's also a former student, but a good friend, and I really support what he's doing. And okay, so thank you, Samuel, for this interview, and to all those people that are listening or watching, whoever you are. I wish you all the best. This is a very random interview, but I hope it was helpful, or interesting at least, or made you
For
laugh,
sure. For
maybe.
sure. Thanks so much, Keith.
Okay, bye bye.